Can you think of anything more decadent than shrimp, bacon, caramelized onions and vegetables with garlic, pasta, all with a creamy sauce? I didn't think so. So today we are doing my creamy shrimp and lardons or bacon pasta. Hey guys, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time tuning in, let us know you're out there by giving us a big thumbs up below and then hit that subscribe button to make sure you never miss a video. Now, let's start cooking. Let's take a look at our ingredients for this pasta, and I'm telling you what, it is just delicious because of all of the fantastic ingredients that we have. So first of all, we've got our shrimp, and I've got some probably medium to medium large size tiger shrimp, and we're just going to season those lightly with salt and pepper, a little bit of olive oil, and a little bit of garlic powder. Even though we're using garlic in the mix, we still, you can always use a little bit more garlic. So to that, we're going to add our vegetables. We've got some onions that I've diced up here. We've got all three kinds of bell pepper, red, green, yellow bell peppers. I've got one hot chili pepper, and this is an optional ingredient. If you like a little spice, you could use the red chili pepper or chili pepper flakes. Then we've got our lardons or bacon, and we've got our garlic, which has been minced. I've got about a cup full of cherry tomatoes, and I've just cut those in half, and I've reserved a few of them for the end for our garnish as well. Then we've got a little bit of, we've got some nutmeg that we're going to use in our sauce. The sauce is going to be similar to an Alfredo sauce in that it's going to contain mainly, some butter, some cream, and some Parmesan cheese. But you always want to add a little bit of nutmeg into that for some flavor. And then we're going to finish with, of course, our freshly grated Parmesan cheese. If you go to the trouble of doing a dish like this, do yourself a favor, get some real Parmesan cheese that you grate at the time that you use it, rather than the stuff that's in the bag. And we've got some high quality pasta here. You could use dried pasta, you could use fresh pasta, homemade pasta, what have you. And you could use any kind of pasta. You could use penne pasta. We're using tagliatelle today. You could use linguini, whatever you'd like to choose for that. Then I've got some heavy cream. And then we'll finish with a little bit of parsley and a little squeeze of lemon juice, because lemon juice helps to brighten things up. If things get a little bit heavy, lemon juice always helps to kind of brighten that up a bit. And now we've got some white wine that we're going to use to deglaze our pan once we sear all of our vegetables. So those are our ingredients. Let's start cooking. So we have our shrimp, and we have seasoned it, and we're just going to set it aside until it's time to cook it. So we've seasoned it with some salt, some pepper, some garlic powder, and a little bit of olive oil. And we've got a pot of water that we're putting to boil. And once this water comes to the boil, we'll add some salt in that, but that's going to be for our pasta. So we'll get that going first. And while that's coming to the boil, we will start on our ingredients. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is add some lardons and onions. I'm just putting down a little bit of olive oil just to get things going. And we're basically going to be sweating these onions in the bacon fat that gets released from the lardons as they cook. So we just want to cook these lardons fairly slowly and get the fat to start rendering from the lardons. Then we're going to add our bacon, then we're going to add our onions to that. Okay, our lardons have started releasing their fat, and this is a glorious aroma when this starts happening. So now that the fat is starting to release from the lardons, we will go ahead and add our onions to the pot. And we're on about a medium-high heat here. We're not actually sweating the onions. We're basically sauteing these onions because we don't mind getting a little bit of color on them. But we're going to cook them until they are, you know, soft and translucent, and maybe with a little bit of color on them. So we'll let these cook around. It'll probably take, you know, 4 to 5 minutes. And I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat down just a little bit because we don't really want to fry them. We just want to cook them so that they turn soft and translucent. And just like when we sweat onions, we're going to go ahead and add a little bit of salt to the pot. Our bacon is actually smoked. It's not cured. If it was cured bacon, it would be too salty if we wanted to add a little bit of salt to it, but it's actually smoked bacon. We just want to see a little bit of color on the onions, and then we'll add the rest of our vegetables, our bell peppers and our garlic. And we'll let that cook a little bit more and let those lardons get a little bit more well done. Our onions have started to get a little bit of color on them, and you can see a little bit of the bacon sticking to the bottom of the pan. That is great. That's what we want. That, by the way, is called souks or fond, and that's where your flavor comes from. So now let's go ahead and add our peppers. And we just want to cook these peppers until they're nice and soft and pliable. And at this point, if your pan starts to get a little bit dry, you can go ahead and add a little bit more olive oil. And so I think that's what I'm going to do now, is just add just a little bit of olive oil to this pan. You want to keep things nice and moist. So we'll let those cook for another 5 minutes or so. And now once our vegetables start softening, we'll go ahead and add our garlic. The main reason we don't want to add the garlic at the same time as the other vegetables is that garlic tends to cook quickly and burn fast. So we're adding the garlic now. And that's actually something to really pay attention to, because you know, if you burn the garlic, it basically ruins the dish. So we don't want to burn our garlic, but we just want to taste just the wonderful flavor of garlic, but not burned garlic. So we'll let that cook for just a few more minutes. Okay. Our water has come to the boil, and now that it's boiling, we can add some coarse kosher salt or large grain sea salt to that water. And I like to wait until the water starts to boil before we do that, because it slows the boiling process down if you add the salt beforehand. And now that the water is boiling and salted, we're going to go ahead and just add our pasta, and we'll get that started. Our vegetables are nice and soft, and the garlic has cooked. And so now we're going to add our tomatoes. And we really just want to put these tomatoes in, get them nice and blistered, and let them start breaking down. And all of that wonderful fond that's at the bottom of our pan will start to release. It'll release even more a little bit later as we deglaze our pan with the white wine, but this will certainly start the process. So we want to go ahead and keep our heat up on this, and we'll cook this and let these tomatoes get a little bit blistered and start breaking down a little bit. I'm just going to turn the tomatoes over and on the skin side and let that skin side get a little cooked. Now while our tomatoes are breaking down and cooking, our pasta, we've got it on the back burner here, And we just want to keep an eye on it. And we want to cook this pasta until it's al dente or just still a little bit chewy, because we're going to actually finish it in the dish with the rest of the elements. So we don't want the pasta to become overcooked. And this is what we want. You can see the tomatoes starting to cook, starting to break down. And we'll just let those cook for a little bit until they start to soften a little bit more. Okay, as your tomatoes start breaking down, we'll just stir everything in. And what we're going to do is take this out, and we'll cook our shrimp in the same pan. So we're going to take this mixture out, and we've just got another pan that's just been sitting in a warm oven. And so we'll just add this mixture to that pan and reserve it until we're ready for it. Okay, now that we've got our vegetables out of the pan, we're going to add a little bit of butter to the pan. And this is what we will use to saute our shrimp. So I've got a little bit of olive oil added in there as well. And that just keeps the butter from burning. And we'll keep this heat up fairly high, because we do want to saute these shrimp rather than, we don't want to stew them. So high heat, and we'll just add our shrimp. And we want to make sure that we keep an eye on these shrimp so that they do not overcook. Nothing worse than overcooked shrimp. And just keeping in mind that we will be cooking these, we'll be putting these shrimp back in this mixture with the sauce a little bit later. So as the shrimp start to turn pink, you can just start turning them over. And wow, you just can't beat the aroma of cooking shrimp. And now this butter, I know it might look like it's a little bit extra amount of butter, but this butter is going to be forming the base of our sauce as well. So same thing, we've had another little pan reserved for our shrimp. So we will put our shrimp, once they're nice and cooked on both sides, we'll put our shrimp in this little plate to sit and wait while we finish the rest of our sauce. As you're cooking your shrimp, shrimp will curl, and the thing you want to do is you want this C shape, but you don't really want them to start touching. You don't want the tail to touch the head in, because that means you are basically starting to overcook your shrimp. So that's kind of a good guideline to let you know that your shrimp is done. And I'm not going to put those in the oven, I'm just going to set those aside. All right, so now what we're going to do is deglaze our pan. So we're just going to add our white wine. And we really just want to add enough wine to cover the bottom, and we want to bring this wine to the boil, and we want it to what it will do is concentrate the flavors. We want to burn off the alcohol. We'll concentrate the flavors, and in just a few seconds, well, as you can see now, see how that fond is starting to release from the bottom? That is your flavor. All right, so we're going to let this wine boil and try to reduce, and then we'll move to our next step. In the meantime, let's check on our pasta. And again, we want this pasta to be al dente and not completely cooked, and I think that that's where we are. Very good. And you could certainly, just take a quick bite of your pasta to see if it's where you want it. I can tell from having done this a couple of times that it is where we want it, but we'll we'll take a bite in just a second. And now I'm going to keep this pasta water because we may want to use a little bit of that for our sauce. So let's just give it a try here. Yep. Absolutely perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour some of the water out. We won't need a lot of it. And I'm going to just put the pasta back over that water to keep it warm. And we're going to turn the heat off on the pasta. And we'll just lightly put the lid on it. In the meantime, look at this wine. And you can see now this wine is starting to get a little bit syrupy. That is absolutely what we want. So we want that to reduce. And reducing just means to, if you start out with a cup and you want to go to a half a cup, by evaporating and cooking and boiling, that is called reduction. So we want this wine to really almost, we want the pan to almost be dry. Beautiful. And this is this step you want to be patient with. You want to make sure that you give that wine time to cook, and you give it time for that alcohol to evaporate. So we'll let this cook for just a few minutes more, and we'll add the rest of our elements. Okay, now for the fun part. It is time to add our heavy cream. So what we're going to do is just whisk this cream in. And I know it looks like it's getting fairly thick, and this is why we have reserved some of our pasta water, because if our sauce is, too thick toward the end, we can always add some of our pasta water to that. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and bring this, again, we want to bring this to the boil, and we will let it start reducing, because reducing a sauce intensifies the flavor. So we want to, when the bubbles start, we'll let this then cook for a little bit so that it can reduce. Okay, now our cream has reduced. You can see how it's nice and bubbled up. I'm going to turn the heat down now. And let's go ahead and season our sauce here. So I'm going to grate in just a little bit of my nutmeg. And again, it's really best if you use the whole nutmeg and grate it in as you need it. As you can tell, you only need a very little bit. That may have been a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Let's go ahead and add our cheese. I'm going to go ahead and turn the heat down quite a bit. I've already grated a little bit of my cheese, and we'll go ahead and grate a little bit more. And I'm going to turn my heat way down, because now we really want to keep it warm to incorporate the rest of our elements. So don't be shy with the Parmesan cheese. That is part of the sauce. Okay, so I probably grated about a 1/2 cup of cheese into the mixture. And again, the sauce looks fairly thick, but we will thin it down a little bit with some of our pasta water. And before we season it with salt and pepper, let's just give it a little taste. It's wonderful. But yes, we can use just a little bit of salt. The reason you don't season it before you put your Parmesan cheese in is because Parmesan can be quite salty, depending on the age and the process. So now we'll add our black pepper. And I'm going to go ahead and ladle in a little bit of our pasta water to our sauce, and there's a good chance we'll use a little bit more of it. And now let's go ahead and add our pasta. Look at that. Nice and creamy. All right, so as we get our pasta stirred in, we can now add our vegetables. Look how creamy. And you know what? Let's give it another taste. See where we are. That's wonderful. We can now add a little bit of our lemon juice. It's not very heavy. It's just very, very tasty. But the lemon juice will serve to add a little bit of acid to it and just kind of brighten things up a little bit. And now let's add our shrimp back in. And really, we're just putting our shrimp back in to kind of let them warm through if they happen to get a little bit less warm. And that's it. Let's get it plated up. All right, here we are. We've got our creamy shrimp and lardons or bacon pasta, and let's give it a try. We've got it paired today with a dry white wine from the Loire Valley. This is called a muscadet. And a lot of times people mistake it for muscat, which is a sweet wine, but it's a dry white wine, similar to a Chardonnay or a Sauvignon Blanc, something like that. So that's what we're pairing this with. It, by the way, is the same wine that we used in the sauce. Anytime you're using a wine for your sauce, make sure it's a wine that you would actually drink rather than a cooking wine. But now let's just dive in and give this a taste. Oh wow, look at that pasta, that creamy sauce. It is absolutely fantastic. The shrimp, the freshness of the shrimp because they're not overcooked. The bacon, just the peppers in there, a little bit of heat from those red chili peppers, and the cream and the sauce, the nutmeg. What nutmeg does is just brings out flavor. You don't really want to taste nutmeg, but you want to taste the effect of nutmeg. And it does its job here. You could actually pour a little bit more creamy sauce over this if you wanted to. But this is absolutely delicious. I hope you'll give it a try. If you like this video, hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell when you subscribe so you get notified every time we release a new video. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.